I'd like to invite the audience now to ask their questions. We'll take two short rounds of questions, and and then we'll wrap up the session. The gentleman at the back.
Okay, I wanted to ask two questions, but I'll ask only one, I believe. If nobody else wants to ask, then I will maybe comment on the other one. What I want to talk about is transfer of technology, and this particularly with regard to human resource development. Okay, maybe I just go back quickly to the past. We had a very strong electrical maintenance and instruments in the petroleum sector.
Could you come a little closer to the mic?
Oh, okay. There was a very strong instrument, mechanic, and electrical component capability in the petroleum sector. The schools the programs had changed with regard to apprenticeship. What has happened, what is currently in Trinidad and Tobago a real issue is the question of electronics. Have you, in your research, identified the need for electronics in the petroleum sector and in Trinidad and Tobago in general, and if there is any transfer of such skills and competencies so that Trinidad and Tobago can again be one of the leading countries in the world with regard to that type of capability? Because those cars out there now is electronics, and we don't have the technicians available to repair those vehicles. The other point I wanted to make was with regard to the question of the flaring of gas and so on. And one of the things about the production and exploration, it has to do with the price of the product on the international market and the price to go out there and explore and produce. Because at a point in time when the gas was, in fact, Amoco found gas way back in 1972, and what they did was put it into the ground. Then they had the flaring of gas, and the OWTU played a very significant role with regard to the gas policy. But all of these depended upon, we don't need the gas, so therefore we can flare it, or we could put it into the ground. Because the prices were so low that it was not economically viable to produce the gas at that point in time in the 70s. So I just wonder if you could just comment on those two items for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other takers? Okay, we have someone that. Okay. Come forward, please.
Karan Khan from NGC. Just a couple of points. I don't know if you're aware that NGC acquires the most value from the petrochemical sector. So the question is, how can we encourage them to be more efficient when it is cheaper for them right now to just pick up and leave because of the gas supply shortfalls? I mean, that is the reality we're facing right now. Secondly, you can't only look at efficiency alone, because, I mean, you have to look at the commercial side also, because like pricing and all those things, I mean, all that plays a role, because even with the gas, even with the price of petrochemicals down and the price of LNG down, NGC, still, we are still making a profit. So you have to look at the value to the government. And finally, you're talking about LNG and the efficiency and what value we get from it. But in terms of the potential value from LNG, I mean, the government can acquire, I mean, there's potential there. Because besides for you're looking at it in that way, LNG is also an upstream incentive also, because how are you going to encourage the upstream to drill for gas? I mean, they don't acquire much value from the domestic. They acquire the most value from LNG. So, yes, you can look at it like that in terms of employment and things, but they can't look at that alone. And in terms of LNG also, in terms of the potential for the government to acquire value, LNG is one of the most potential areas to acquire value, because with train run up for renewal coming up in 2018, NGC could acquire more cargoes. I mean, a cargo alone, NGC makes hundreds of millions of dollars on a cargo. So just some points to to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, going 3 times. Gone. All right, so I will just invite whoever on the panel wants to give responses to the 2 set of questions. Yeah.
Sure, I could make some comments on the questions. I could probably start with LNG first. And LNG contract is coming up for renewal in 2018, train 1 that is. And the nature of that contract, it's a contract where it's a train, and a train is simply a different word for a plant. It's a plant that converts or liquefies natural gas. It liquefies natural gas into a liquid state, which it aids in transportation and shipping and so on. And the nature of that contract is it allows the plant to operate. NGC doesn't supply train 1, unlike petrochemicals where NGC is directly involved in supplying natural gas. So the nature of the contract is one of just simply its operations. One of the things about LNG on the whole, though, is that the bulk of the cargoes are sold on a long-term contractual basis. And as you probably would have read in the newspapers and so on, a couple of months leading up to budget and so on, the contracts are private and confidential. But one thing's for sure, in the contracts, they are fixed. The contracts are tied to fixed destinations. So the supply of LNG is based on, let's say, a destination in the US, East Coast, or a destination in Spain, perhaps, and the prices are tied to these destinations. And the problem that the country is seeing is that the purchase contract holders in the US and Spain are purchasing LNG from Trinidad. And you know what they're doing with it? They're re-exporting it to Japan, they're re-exporting it to China, they're re-exporting it to Argentina and Chile, and so on. Our LNG, Trinidad and Tobago's LNG, is being purchased by contract holders and re-exported to other locations. And the contract holders are earning the return from that type of transaction. So I think in that contract renewal coming up in 2018, that's an opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago to extract more value, where the contracts have been set in such a way that the prices are now tied to the actual delivery destination as opposed to the contracted destination. So a brief comment on LNG. In terms of NGC's role and its profitability and so on, NGC falls in the midstream. There's upstream production. NGC is involved in the pipeline transportation, and there's the downstream, which is the actual processors of natural gas. So NGC Gas is involved, and they do earn a significant return, and the government, being the sole shareholder of NGC, earns that return in the form of a dividend and so on. One of the things about NGC is that they offer a special contract again to the downstream users, where the price of the petrochemical commodity varies with the price of natural gas charged to the downstream plant. So for example, if methanol price is lowered, the price of natural gas charged to the methanol producer is lowered. So it's a mechanism to ensure that a return on investment is earned by the downstream, and NGC actually faces the price risk by offering that type of pricing arrangement. In terms of gas flaring, I totally agree. At one point in time, gas was basically disposed. It was just flared or vented. And some of it, I totally agree with your point. And I think in 1981, the government of Trinidad and Tobago actually initiated a freeze or a ban on flaring. And they set up a platform off the East Coast to compress natural gas and send it to the shore and so on. What was the change? What was the factor that led to that policy? It was the discovery of non-associated gas. There is associated gas, which is gas which is commingled with crude oil, and there's non-associated gas which exists in reservoirs without crude oil. So it was that discovery of non-associated gas in particular which enabled the monetization of natural gas and the whole evolution of the downstream natural gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. Any of the other panelists want to comment on this one? Okay. All right, so I'll just open it up for one more, if anyone have any more questions before we close off. If not, I'll just invite the panelists to use about 1 minute each if they want to have any more comments, additional comments. Go ahead.
In terms of the question on electronics and instrumentation, this wasn't looked at in detail, but it is a service provided by the service providers, and the service is also provided for cars, ships, also other types of plants in the manufacturing sector. So yeah, we could transfer capability there.
In my closing statement, I want to reiterate a statement made by the Prime Minister sometime this year, and he said to pray for new discoveries of oil and gas. That's my closing statement. Pray for new discoveries.
Very good.
I'd like to, in my last minute, to really salute Mr. Franklin, who has been the person that has been the head of department when I came in here. Has been a strong head of department in my view. Has also been a friend. I don't see Mr. Franklin around as much as I used to, and I hope that's not a trend. But I missed the conversations on the corridor, not just talk about economics, but life, and filled with lots of good life advice. So I hope those conversations can continue on or off the corridor, Mr. Franklin.
Okay. On that positive note, we would like to bring this session to a close and give the panelists all a round of applause. And we'll move on to the next session.